Well, I just left and got back home, and I got so excited I shot the intro and didn't have the microphone on. So what we're going to do today is we're going to remove the fuel pressure regulator and the fuel pressure adjuster and go back to the factory specs, and I'll throw some pictures up here of them. And I'm hoping that praying that maybe this bike will continue to run with the original parts back on here. And I probably won't put these parts back on here, so if anybody's interested in these parts, maybe message me about anything that you want. I have quite a slew of parts laying around, but this will tell me now if the fuel pump is totally bad. Now, I believe the guy that this bike came from, that he said that this fuel pump is bad, but I'm not 100% sure. So we'll put the fuel pressure, the OEM fuel pressure regulator on here, and go back to the non-adjustable setting and see if it'll continue to idle and run. But what happened is once it revs up, the fuel pump can't keep up with the pressure, and it's killing the engine because there's no fuel. But there was so much fuel getting dumped into this engine that when I did run it, man, you could just smell it coming out of the exhaust. So we're going to get a little bit of fuel leakage on this right side, so we want to try to change that as quick as possible. But yeah, we'll get into this. Not real sure what's going on here. Okay, so here's the regulator here that we're going to use. This is off the other set of throttle bodies, and this is the banjo bolt that will go inside the throttle body. And then we need the copper washers. And these copper washers, it's good to just have a set like these laying around. Anytime you mess with this fuel stuff or any of these crush washers, especially on your brakes, you need to replace them. So go ahead and get this set up. Okay, so what we're going to remove is the adjuster here, and we are going to get quite a bit of fuel leakage here, and I'm going to try and do this as quick as possible. The other thing that I do not know is I do not know if the line is going to be bigger than the OEM one. So if that line ends up being bigger than the OEM one, then we're going to have, I probably should not have filled the gas tank up. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. I tried to get a bucket here because I wasn't sure how much that this hose was going to leak. And we will go ahead and reinstall the original fitting from the factory. Now we're going to torque this down. If you ever remove this line, you need to make sure to have new crush washers for sure. And that's all that adjuster is. I guess you just dial it in and out is what you do. So it's actually a neat piece. It's just I'm not racing, so I don't need it. Like I said, I want to daily drive this bike. This bike is made to be ridden. Okay, and actually since we've replaced the adjuster piece, the other piece that's on here should just be a gauge. There should just be a fuel pressure gauge. It really shouldn't affect the pressure because the adjustment was in this regulator piece here. This was how you adjusted it. So, I mean, I'm actually going to try to fire it up and see if it'll start and see what happens. Fuel pump kicked on. Then it dies. So I think the fuel pump is not keeping the pressure. However, I'm not 100% sure that's the problem. We're going to go ahead and remove that fuel pressure. Man, I don't know what kind of EPROM chips in this, but it's getting a lot of fuel still. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to disconnect the sensor here, or not disconnect, we're just going to set this aside. Oh, well, that could have a lot to do with it too if it's got a vacuum leak. The whole hose here is cracked. Oh, great. Well, this is what kind of happens when you work on something that's 20 years old. I do not know if I have... Yeah, that'll work. Huh. Well, we'll just kind of set this up and see. see what's going on here. Well, that actually could have a lot to do with it not running properly either. So I think I can remove this. Why in the world would he have done that? Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to possibly remove the air box here. And I've done a video on removing the air box here and installing new velocity stacks, so this is going to take some time, and it's going to be much easier for me to just go ahead and do this and not record this. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the air box now. We've got the lid off, and I'm unaware if anybody's watching this and knows what kind of air filter this is. This probably was a performance air filter at the time in the year 2000, but the problem is as soon as I touch the inside of it, it just breaks away. And you probably can't see that, but this material that was used is no good anymore. So I imagine this would have been what would have been considered a high flow, and this could have been a Renegade or an Evolution air filter, but over time it has just entirely, it's destroyed basically. And I'll throw up a picture when I'm done here, but I actually do have another one of these air boxes sitting for storage that I'm gonna end up putting the bottom on here. It's just a nightmare the way that this is all tied into the throttle bodies, and well, I'll just keep working here, and we'll go from there. Okay, and here is our old, well, our newer regulator. And I'm going to go ahead and remove that and get the other one ready to be put on. And we're leaking a lot of gas. There we go. And get them tightened back down. Now we'll tighten these up. And now reconnect our quick disconnect. And I also had to replace one of the vacuum lines on here because it was cracked and falling apart, and that could have been an issue also with it if it was sucking air into the temperature sensor there. But we'll go ahead and I've got the other air box because this other air box that come off of here was made for the other regulator. So if I sell the other regulator, I want that air box to go with it. So I've got to go ahead and find the other air box that I have, because that regulator has a special cutout for the air box. Okay, so we've got the lower air intake back on. If you want to see a video on that, I'll put the link below on when I change the velocity stacks out on one of my other Milles. But I actually had two different air boxes. I've got a Carl Edwards 38 57 millimeter bottom air box that was going to go with the upgraded 57 millimeter throttle body, so I can't use that. And then I had another air box, but I want to go ahead and show you there's two different tops of air boxes that Aprilia made for these air boxes. The bottom air box is exactly the same, but the top air box isn't. And you can actually have a air box that has pieces that fit down into the air filter and an air box that doesn't, that smashes up against the top. So you need to make sure that when you order a new air filter, you're going to take this air box apart, that you get the right air box lid. And also there is supposed to be a little gasket around the air box where the air box will actually seal. And I actually had a leak one time on one of my bikes because I over tightened the single rear bolt for the airbox lid, and it cracked and it was sucking air, and the bike was popping and gagging and it wouldn't idle right. And what it was doing was it was sucking air from the back of the airbox from the top airbox lid being cracked. So I actually had a K&N air filter, so this bike had a performance air filter, so we'll go ahead and throw the K&N in here just to get her going and then get the new lid put on. Okay, so we've got everything hooked back up. I've double checked everything, and we'll go ahead and see. We will see if it will fire, if it'll start up. I screwed one thing up. I didn't put the throttle cables underneath of the airbox lid. There we go. Okay, and let's see if it'll start. Oh, that fuel pump sounds terrible. This isn't going to solve my problem. Listen to it. That fuel pump is whining. And once that fuel pump pressurizes, it stops making the noise here. Okay, so here's the deal. Final conclusion here is I'm going to change the oil in this bike and go up to the DMV, get the title work all taken care of, get it titled, and then I'm going to attempt to ride this thing. The fuel pump does make some whining noise to begin with, but when you turn it on, it sounds fine. I mean, it sounds just like my other one did. So, you know, this thing sat for, I don't know how many years. So this thing, I need to go ahead and get the oil out of it and get this thing on the road, and I'm not going to ride this thing very far because I might just take this out here and it just sputter out and be done. But I really don't think so. So I think upgrading the stuff that was upgraded would have been fantastic if you were racing this bike. But this is just going to be a daily driver, so I had the parts, the OEM parts that I've pulled off of other bikes. So I think we're going to be, I'm going to get real lucky on this, and I'll be able to start riding this thing. So I'll keep you updated on any updates that come on. And my ATV got delivered today. That's why I left. So I'm really excited on that. I've got to get that in the garage and started working on that because that's my extracurricular activity on being able to blow off some steam. So I really think that's going to help with my stress and whatnot, getting back in the woods and riding that ATV. So thanks for watching, and there may be a fuel pump video coming up, and I'll keep you posted for anything that happens with this bike.